Hey everyone, had a couple of people ask me how I do the clouds on the Union Pacific Geneva Sub and HO scale, so I'm going to do a quick little how-to on how I do these clouds. They're actually very easy to do. This is DeKalb, Illinois we're looking at here, and these are some of the clouds I've done. Once I get the clouds done, I also come in and I hand paint some trees back here and then put the regular trees in the front. It really gives it some depth. But for today's video, I'll just go ahead and show you how I do the clouds. Alright, so what I have here is just a regular piece of masonite. This is actually up on my upper level. And this is just 1/8 inch masonite that I use for my backdrop. And there is a finished backdrop over here that's all painted with the blue that I use. But to get things started, you need a good base to work with. So I actually use this masonite, which works really well. And once I get the blue painted, now the blue color is the final 2 coats. What I use on the bare masonite itself is this primer right here. I guess it's called 1-2-3 primer. You can buy this pretty much anywhere. And the masonite gets 2 coats of this. So 1 coat, let it dry, 2nd coat, let that dry, and then I paint the blue. And this blue paint happens to be Glidden. And the code that I use for the top, if you want to pause the video and write that down, that's the color I use right there. Alright, so 2 coats of white on the masonite, 2 coats of blue, and then from there I do my clouds. So here we are in West Chicago Yard. I'm going to actually do some clouds from this end right here all the way over to probably here for the video, just to show you how they're done. Alright, so hang on and we'll get started. Okay, so first of all, you know, when I work on some areas of the layout that are semi-finished, at least ground cover down, I always try to protect. So I got a couple of really nice thick pieces of cardboard that I use. Some people throw newspaper down, plastic, doesn't matter. I like this, it gives me like a tabletop bench to work with. So to do clouds, very simple. You need some clean water. I buy these cheap little paper plates. This is just Delta Cream Coat White, acrylic paint, and a couple of different size sponges, and that's all I use to do my clouds. Alright, so I'm just going to add some white acrylic paint here in this little paper plate, and the other thing you probably want to have on hand is some paper towels just to keep your hands clean and whatnot. So go ahead and dip the sponge in the water, let that thing swell right up. And you want to try to get most of the water off, but you don't want it dripping wet, but you don't want to totally get all the water out either, because what we're going to do with this right now is just do the along the bottom where it's usually the horizon. It's usually got kind of a white haze to it. And then we'll go ahead and dip that in some paint, like so. And then I just come over here and we just start wiping it along the bottom. And then we want to whisk some of those up, just like that. Get a little more water, a little more paint. Yeah. And the whole idea that I do is just try to keep blending it. So if you get it too wet, you're going to actually get runs, and that's what you try to avoid. And then once that dries, it really starts to come out. So right now it's wet, so just kind of keep that in mind. Too much water there. See that? That's what I'm talking about. I want to get it wet enough. So if you start to run like this, you've got almost too much water on it. So see how that's running? That's what we don't want. Nice little cloud right there. Okay. I'm going to move this out of my way. Come and do this side. Top. Try to add a little bit of far different colorations just in the, up from the horizon. So that just gives us some nice wispy clouds, just a far away haze right down to the horizon. And you can see it does dry pretty quick because I'm not saturating it. If there's some parts you don't like, just since it's acrylic, before it fully dries, you can actually keep manipulating it as long as it doesn't fully dry, and keep softening it. And I'm not really putting too much pressure on this. Like that. Alright, we're going to pause the video right here. We're going to let that dry a little bit. It only takes a few minutes. We'll come back and throw some clouds on. Okay, so I'm going to start with a clean slate. This is still a little damp back here, but it's actually good enough to put some clouds up. So I'll get some fresh white paint. Get a big glob in there. So it's up to you if you want to use a small sponge or bigger sponge that I was using. What I do is I just kind of fold it over and I use the corner of the sponge. You want this to be already wet. You don't want it to be dry. You want to have not saturated but wet, damp. And like I did over here, if you focus on over here, along the lower horizon line, the clouds, you want to make them smaller and closer together. It gives you the depth. And then as you get a little higher into the sky, you can make them bigger. So that really makes it look like it's going further away than what it really is. I keep my clouds close to the horizon. I don't go all the way to the ceiling like on this upper level up here. I'm not going to go all the way to the ceiling with clouds. When you look, out at the world, clouds always seem to be on the horizon unless it's a really cloudy day, and I'm not really going to paint that. So I always try to keep my clouds close to the ground. Smaller the clouds, the further away. The bigger the clouds, the closer they are to the eye. So that's what we're going to do over here in West Chicago Yard. So we're going to get a little bit of paint. And I don't use any other color but white. It's kind of funny. People try to do gray clouds and whites and get the bottoms. That's great. But for what I do, the eye almost tricks you into believing that there's gray there already. So I don't paint the gray part. But there's nothing wrong with doing that. So this whole section right here in West Chicago is going to be an entire tree line, just like what I did over in DeKalb back here. So I'm not going to concentrate too much on too many low clouds, because it is all trees back here in West Chicago. But I like to have some clouds pointed through, coming through the trees and things like that. So we're just going to come along the bottom right here, and we just just kind of lightly tap some of these lower end clouds in. They're kind of the further away clouds. And there's really, I think this way would make them upside down, believe it or not. So I kind of go this way with the clouds. It gives you kind of the tops. A few more along the bottom here. I keep working them. You don't want them too bright because they're far away. But most of these will be hidden behind tree lines. So. Put a few more over here. Is my head in the way?
No.
Really far away, close to the horizon, and small if you want. A little closer up here. Now if I want to do the tops, instead of doing this way, I'll flip this around and we can get some tops on that. And I'm just tapping this really lightly. Down and get a few over here, and along the horizon. Nice. And we'll get one more over here. Far away. Maybe a couple more. It's far away. Alright, we're going to pause that for a second. I'm going to redo the paint on the tray and we'll do some bigger ones along the top. Okay, so right along the horizon we've got our smaller clouds that give us some distance, and then what I'll do is I'll just put a few bigger clouds along the top. Now to do that you can kind of use the same technique, only this time I'm going to flip the brush over, or the sponge, and get some tops in here. Kind of those nice round fluffy tops. It's always a nice day on my model railroad. Over here. And you can just kind of tap it out, soften those edges a little bit. I still have not re-wet my sponge yet. It's very damp, but it's not dripping or anything like that. A little bit of an edge right up on the top here. Like that. So I always try to keep my sharper edges to one side. We're kind of pretending the skylight's only coming from one direction in the sky. So when the sun hits clouds, you always get a sharper edge on one side and kind of fuzzy on the other where the light's actually hitting the clouds. So you don't want to go too much one way and then do your other cloud the other way because that might not look right. So I always try to keep the wind direction, the light hitting the clouds, all coming from the same direction. So that's something, you know, I always took a little piece of masonite, painted it up, and practiced for quite a while before I was comfortable enough to start doing this on my permanent layout. So if that's something you want to try, I suggest doing that, because it's a little bit of a technique. It's not very hard, but it's something you want to practice. And it doesn't take nothing to paint up a little piece of masonite to play with. And soften those up a little bit. So, now I'm going to get a little more paint. Give me a nice edge up here. And maybe do one more over in this area. And up in here it's kind of boring in this part of the sky. We'll give it a cloud. I used to have a tendency to make my clouds too big. Not that that's wrong, but it really disturbs the depth of field we're trying to achieve when we have when you're looking through the whole scene, and then you got this huge cloud back here. It almost doesn't look right. But if that's something you're looking for, there's no wrong way. One starting to form over here. And you come in and just soften up that. It had enough time to dry a little bit. When you come in and soften up those back edges. Throw one right in here. So I think I'm pretty happy with that. Looks pretty good. And then what I do is I come in and I hand paint my trees along the back here. Then I'll lay some trees into the front, add some dirt, and that'll pretty much finish off that back scene. So there you have it, folks. Give it a try. Practice first. And that's how I do my clouds. Thanks for watching.